Alright, so here's this week's weekly Nightfall. It's the Lightblade. I'm doing a solo flawless master run. And the modifiers for this week are nothing too crazy. Famine is the modifier for the week, which means you get limited special and heavy ammo drops. Just less ammo to find all around. On top of that, the daily modifier is enfilade. So if you're not using a machine gun, then you get significantly less ammo drops all around for any other weapons. If you are using a machine gun, you get more heavy ammo than normal. And so it basically negates famine completely, because I was just getting heavy bricks left and right just because I had fixed odds equipped. Fixed odds is the machine gun I went with. I just crafted it and I wanted to level it up anyways. Was it the best machine gun to use? Probably not, but that's okay, because at level 1 you can craft this thing with incandescent. I've got incandescent and quick draw on it, I think, and it's actually really good at ad clearing. Out of all the incandescent weapons that we got from starting last season and then a few this season, I think fixed odds is the best one out of the bunch. Simply because incandescent on some of the other weapons is, while it's good in lower end content, if you're doing like master or GM, like an SMG with incandescent is just not, like Callus Mini Tool is a great SMG, probably the best solar SMG that there is to use in PvE for ad clearing. But when you're using it against tankier enemies at higher levels, it's harder to get the kills off quickly, which means your incandescent isn't going to proc as often. Not to mention that on other weapons like scouts, you would have to be giving up something like explosive payload for incandescent. And that's a major trade-off, because explosive payload gives you unlimited range and just does a lot of damage no matter how far away you are. Whereas with incandescent, you don't have that range. You just have your normal weapon range. So whenever you're fighting at range, you're going to be doing a lot less damage, which means it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to take longer to kill a basic ad, which means you're going to be waiting a while just to get that explosion from incandescent, which is going to spread scorch. But on a heavy weapon, that's another story, because whether you're on GM taking care of red bar ads, or if you're on master taking care of pretty much anything other than, say, champions and some really tanky ultras and bosses, you're going to be melting them instantly with fixed odds, which means you're going to have instant explosions all over the place. So I set off quite a few ignitions with this weapon. So yeah, really good machine gun. And I'm looking forward to leveling it up and getting enhanced perks on it. Other than that, I'm using Osteostriga because I don't think I've ever posted a video where I'm using it, and it's pretty much the best PvE exotic SMG in the game. It also came out with the release of Witch Queen, and Lightblade's a Witch Queen Nightfall, so why not use it? And like I said, I wanted to use double primaries so that I would get more heavy ammo, just in case famine ended up kind of playing a role. But it turns out it didn't. It didn't at all. A, I'm using double primary. B, I am using a machine gun to take advantage of enfilade. And yeah, I was just dropping heavy bricks all over the place. I never ran out of ammo. So, and the other thing I'm using Starfire Protocol, so I'm able to spam fusion grenades as long as I've got empowered weapon damage going. So my Well of Radiance will be doing empowered weapon damage, which is going to give me unlimited fusion grenades. That alone, having ability spam with fusion grenades, that's better than a heavy weapon anyway. So it's like pretty much my fixed odds was just for ad clear and taking out a few enemies at range and some solar shields, because there are a few wizards with solar shields. Nothing in the boss fight, but on the way there comes in handy. Also, it spreads, all the incandescent explosions spread scorch, and I'm getting my class ability back faster by spreading scorch from one of my fragments. So there's that as well. And you may have noticed I'm not using Healing Rift or Empowering Rift. I'm using Phoenix Dive. I haven't really used this this ability all that much, but for this Nightfall, it's perfect, because in the boss fight, you don't have time to stand there and drop a rift, and you definitely don't have time to stand in it and take advantage of it, because you're constantly on the move. So Phoenix Dive actually gives you cure ×2, but it's like instant healing. So it's better than a Healing Rift in a lot of senses, because in a Healing Rift it takes a little bit of time where you're vulnerable to drop your rift, and then you kind of slowly heal. It's not super quick. Obviously the rift lasts longer, but if you're critical, you can just Phoenix Dive, and it's like you instantly, your health is back to 100%. So it is a really good class ability, in my opinion, using it in this Nightfall anyways. And you can kind of aim your character in the direction that you want to dive, kind of like quick fall. It's like quick fall, but for Warlock. Like with quick fall, you can steer yourself left or right or back, and you can kind of dive into that direction. So you could do the same thing with Phoenix Dive. So yeah, I recommend giving it a shot. I've also got double bomber on my class item, so it's giving me grenade energy every time I Phoenix Dive. So you'll see, like here in this bridge section, I wanted to take care of the ads on the platforms before boarding the ferry, just because you can get overwhelmed by all the ads on the ferry, and then you got the Shrieker. So if you can take out some of the ads before you get on the ferry, it's a lot easier. And I was just using my fusion grenade, so you know, throw a fusion grenade, Phoenix Dive, throw a fusion grenade, Phoenix Dive, and then you can cycle your abilities a lot faster that way. Also, I pretty much, because I'm using the solar fragment that gives you class ability energy when you scorch targets, every time I throw a fusion grenade, look, like I killed 3 acolytes with that grenade, and instantly replenished my Phoenix Dive. That's from the fragment. I am using bolstering detonation as well, so that also helps on my arm piece. Bolstering detonation, that's so if you grenade damage will give you class energy. So I was kind of surprised at how well that worked. Other than that, I'm using my Sweet Sorrow auto rifle. Now this is an arc burn, so I needed something that was arc. Also, there's quite a few arc shields. There's the arc shielded knights, so you definitely need arc. I've crafted this one with enhanced vorpal. Originally I had enhanced perpetual motion, but I just switched it before doing this mission, because I found I wasn't using Sweet Sorrow all that much, and I think it's because I didn't have the bright perks on it. So I switched perpetual motion for enhanced auto load and holster, because I used the hell out of my Tears of Contrition scout rifle for barriers, because I put auto loading on it, and it just makes the gameplay loop and combat just that much more fluid. Like when you can focus on a certain weapon to do damage or your abilities or whatever, and then just switch to your champion mod weapon for that brief shield break or stun or whatever, and then you can get right back onto what your main focus is. So in this case, my main focus was Osteostriga for close to mid-range, for getting that poison tick damage, and fixed odds at range. So while Sweet Sorrow is a good auto rifle and it's arc, so it matches the burn, it's still not quite as good as Osteostriga up close, nor as good as fixed odds at range. But it was really good at breaking the barrier shields. And now that I have auto loading holster on it, I found it a lot. I enjoyed using it a lot more. So the other thing with fixed odds, or not fixed odds, Osteostriga, is because it does the poison tick damage over time, it enables you to spam fusion grenades better. So with Starfire Protocol, as long as you're doing empowered weapon damage, you're getting grenade energy back. So that counts from tick damage as well. So that's why a lot of people just use Witherhoard. You fire off a Witherhoard, it's doing tick damage for several seconds. You don't have to even fire a weapon anymore, and you're just constantly getting grenades back. So Osteostriga is kind of works similar. I'm also using the fragment that gives you more scorch stacks. You apply more scorch to targets. I can't remember the name of the fragments, but I think it's Ember of Ashes. But one Celestial Fire and one Fusion Grenade will set off an ignition. So I take advantage of that in a few situations as well. Fusion Grenade does, I think at base it does 40 Scorch stacks, and Celestial Fire does 60, or 20 Scorch per missile or whatever projectile that comes out of it. So you got the 3 projectiles, each one does 20. So if you land all 3, then you're doing 60 Scorch. Then one Fusion Grenade is 40, that's 100. You need 100 stacks of Scorch to set off an ignition. And an ignition does massive AoE damage. So, really good. And I think because I'm using Ember of Ashes, I don't even need to land all 3 of my Celestial Fire projectiles. I could probably just land 2. I haven't tested it, but I'm not sure on the numbers, like exactly how much more Scorch you get from it, but it does make a difference. So this Nightfall is really not that bad up until this point. The swamp's not super bad either, depending on what you're using and if you know how to get through it. A lot of people find that the first room, the first encounter, like once you make Alak-Hul go away and take care of those 2 barriers at the start, a lot of people find that room is pretty intense, and it definitely is on Grandmaster. I know because I've tried soloing it. But yeah, you've got like 3 Lightblade warriors, which are the Lucent Hive, so you have to go and finish their ghost after. And on top of that, you got the 2 barriers and some arc shielded knights. So it could be a pretty intense room, but if you kind of play it at the back, you're okay. And then after that, it's, you know, going through the bridge section. As long as you take out the ads preeminently, know when you got to shoot the Shrieker. That's easy to get through. You got the 2 light blades on each side where you go to pick up the orb to dunk it, and then the next row of bridges in the canal is pretty straightforward. I mean, just hop off the ferry, take care of the ads, take care of the Shriekers. That's pretty easy. Then you board the ferry again. After you go through the portal, you just take care of all those all the thrall. nothing challenging there. Now you're in the swamp. The swamp can be a real nightmare. So the first time I did this, I was just going straight through the middle. The way the mechanics work, if you go through the middle, well, you're going through each of those gateways. There's like a gateway with a green haze, 2 pillars on either side. If you go through the gateway, it lights up a lamp straight ahead. Then you go to the lamp, and then you can get the weight of darkness removed. You just stand by it for a couple seconds. You'll see the weight of darkness go down from whatever it's at to 0. And then you can sprint and use your abilities again until you start getting weighed down. Once you get to weight of darkness times 10, then you're like molasses, which is where I'm at right now. So intuitively, you might think it's better to go through the gates and get to the lamps and remove the weights of darkness and get through the swamp that way. But you can do it, but it is super tough because you're gonna get swamped by screebs and those scorn raiders left and right, front and back. Like, they're gonna come from every direction, and you're not gonna have, because of the pathway that you're forced to take, you're not gonna have a very good angle on a lot of the spawns. Like, you'll have trouble just spawn killing the ads. So it's tough. The first time I did this on solo, I was using Sunbreaker, Solar Titan, and I had my throwing hammer, I had fusion grenades, I had my super, and I used all of that just to get through and sunspots. Like, I had to pop my super and just throw hammers everywhere, basically light the whole swamp on fire so the screebs would go into my sunspots and die that way. Because if 2 screebs hit you, you're dead. 1 screeb is going to get you critical. And then, not to mention the moths. So you have to take the moths out too, otherwise they'll come finish you off too. So the second time, I know that you can just go invis with Night Stalker and do it that way too. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Then you can just go straight through the portals and the gateways and get the weight of darkness off. You can pretty much sprint for a good part of the way through the whole swamp and, you know, not even have to deal with any of the enemies if you're invis. But I didn't really want to go that route. I wanted to kind of figure out a different way. Like, obviously, Night Stalker's not the only answer to the swamp. I mean, that would be pretty lame if Bungie was like, oh, sorry, the only way you could beat this Nightfall is if you use Night Stalker. Nah, like, they didn't, I don't think that was their intention. So, but oddly enough, they put this Nightfall back in the loop in rotation for season 19, or season 18 with Arc 3.0, and we got amplified speed booster. So there's your second kind of cheese answer to getting through the swamp. If you're not using invis on Night Stalker, then you could just get amplified on Arc 3.0 and sprint through the whole swamp. Because the weight of darkness, unless you get to 10, only at weight of darkness times 10, then your speed booster will stop working. So you can literally just get amplified at the start, or with those thrall on the ferry, like before you jump off, and then just keep sprinting around on the ferry, and then just start sprinting your way through, go through each of the gates, get to the lamp, and then you just kind of do a quick pause. Obviously you can't stop sprinting at the lamps, but you can kind of like turn your character so that you're in the vicinity of the lamp just long enough to get some of the weight of darkness off, so that you can keep sprinting before you get to weight of darkness times 10. So you can do the whole swamp like that. There's one point where it gets pretty sketchy, where you get to like weight of darkness times 9, so you might not make it. But if what I did last time with the speed booster, I was on Titan again, so I just thunder crashed the rest of the way through. Speed boost, thunder crash, that's it. Don't even have to deal with any screeb. So, but this time I'm doing the Nightfall on Warlock because I didn't want to use Titan again. I've done it twice, solar and arc. And I just finished doing the glass way up with Night Stalker. Like I said, I didn't necessarily want to go invis through the swamp, but so for the swamp this time, I just hugged the right side the whole time, and so I learned that just from LFG doing this on GM with other random people online, and just the two guys that I was playing with. That was the route they took, and it worked. I mean, you still have to deal with the Screeb and the Scorn Raiders, but it's not nearly as bad. And because you're constantly on that right wall, you can never get flanked on the right. And it's also kind of high ground, so you have an angle down on where the spawns are, and you can take everything out preeminently. So even though you got Weighted Darkness times 10 the whole way, and it makes the swamp slower, your survivability is quite a bit better. So once you get through that, then you just got to deal with that Unstoppable and the cave and all the raiders. The raiders can kill you pretty quick up at the top, but fixed odds made pretty quick work of them. I'm using the Unstoppable Solar Melee ability mod on my headpiece. Not that it was needed. Actually, if I did it again, I probably wouldn't even use it at all, because trying to use Celestial Fire at the only 2 or 3 Unstoppables there are in this whole Nightfall. The Unstoppables are at range anyway, so like Celestial Fire is not always going to hit them. And then unless you got a Well of Radiance going, ready to go anyway, you can't take full advantage of that one stun. I would say that the best class to use the Unstoppable Melee mod with is probably Hunter, because like with your knife trick, you can get your knife tricks refreshed super easily, just by, if you're using Ophidia Spade, then you got 2, or if you dodge near an enemy, you get your knife trick back. Obviously Titan as well, like Bonk Hammer, Throwing Hammer. If you're close enough to the Unstoppable, then that's the best way to go, because then you can just constantly throw your hammer and pick it up. But if you're at range, then you gotta throw your hammer and you can't go pick it up, so you gotta wait for cooldown. But yeah, Celestial Fire is kind of a slow cooldown, and I'm on tier 7 strength, so I mean that's not bad at all. But it's still too long to be able to get off multiple stuns on an Unstoppable. Like, you get one off, and then you've got a few seconds to take advantage of the good damage, and then you're stuck just doing damage slowly for the rest of the time until your melee comes back. By the time it comes back, the Unstoppable is probably dead anyway. So once you take care of the Unstoppables and the Ogres, then you go down here, you got the 2 Shriekers. Alak-Hul is in the middle. He'll blast you with Arc, so you got to watch out for him. Also, sometimes there's 1 or 2 adds that are left creeping around in the swamp, and they'll sneak up on you pretty fast. Like, there could be a Screeb, there could be a Raider, or a Knight. Almost all the time there's at least 1 or 2 adds left that you didn't see when you jump down, and they'll flank you either in this section here or when you go over to the right to take care of the other Shrieker. On this run specifically, I guess I had spammed enough fusion grenades where there was no ads left standing. So once you take out these 2 Shriekers, then Alak-Hul is going to disappear again. There'll be 2 Acolytes up here, and then watch out for the Moth. And then it's on to the boss fight. And so most people find that the boss fight is the hardest part of the strike. I originally found that the swamp was the hardest. And like compared to Glassway, I find Glassway is a tougher boss fight in general. I mean, the boss itself isn't threatening like this boss, but the room in Glassway, like, you have nowhere to hide from the 16 champions and 8 wyverns, or 8 overloads and 8 wyverns. You can hide from the barriers for the most part. But yeah, Glassway is pretty intense. This, not so much if you know how to play it, because even though there's no place to post up or take cover really, like, you do have to keep moving. So you got no choice in the matter really, unless you're gonna cheese it somewhere and hide in a corner and use like storm grenades that are just gonna go outside and track all the damage for you. This is basically how you play it. It doesn't matter if you're on Master, Grandmaster, Legend, whatever, you have to play it the same. You have to keep rotating, and then when you're not rotating, it's because there's no adds or knights or light bearers or barriers that are up, and it's just you and Alak-Hul. So when it's just you and Alak-Hul and maybe a few acolytes, then you're playing, you're baiting him back and forth between the middle platform and one of the upper platforms. You don't have to do it that way, but it's just the easiest way to do it. So you can just stand on one platform, he'll be in the middle, then he's going to jump down, and then he's going to jump up to where you're at. So as he's jumping up to where you're at, you just jump back over to the middle. So you just play hopscotch with him, back and forth, and then you can just tick away at him as you're doing it, just do damage. The other option would just be to like circle around the whole room on the upper platforms and just let him chase you, and you can turn around and do some damage as he's chasing you. But the problem is, while he's chasing you, he'll be spamming you with arc, and if he gets too close and hits you with his axe, you're dead. When you're doing hopscotch on the platforms, he doesn't have the time to do anything to you, really. Every now and then he'll pause on one of the platforms. Instead of jumping down to come get you, he'll start spamming you with arc, so you do have to watch out for that. As soon as you see his hand go up, that's when you know you better start like jumping around and dodging and moving and making sure that you don't get hit by his arc. Because I think a direct impact from one of his arc blasts will kill you straight up. And even if it doesn't hit you, if splash damage gets you, you'll be very weak and die super quick. But so once you take his first third of health down just by doing the hopscotch and back and forth thing, then he goes immune in the middle. He spawns 2 arc shielded knights and 1 warrior Lightblade. When you kill all 3 of them, then he'll come out of immunity in the middle and he'll start attacking you again, and then at the same time 2 barriers spawn with a bunch of adds. The barriers always spawn on the upper platforms at in specific spots or a specific distance away from each other. I don't know exactly where, but you can hear when they spawn, and you know that as soon as he comes out of immunity, once you've killed the 2 knights and light bearer, you know that the barriers are going to be coming up next. So the trick with the barriers is you need to take them out quickly, obviously while you're on the move, and you can't get stationary at all to take them out. So a lot of times you just have to give up on kind of one cycling the barriers. You might have to let them regen their health, and then do damage and break their shield again. Sometimes you just got to do it a few times until the boss leaves you alone for long enough where you can pull it off. Because I'm not using any burst damage type of heavy weapon, right? Like if I was using Storm Chaser or Hothead, then I can take the barriers out pretty quickly. Like once I break their shield the first time and they're stunned, I can pretty much instantly melt them with a good heavy, matching the arc burn. But I'm using a solar machine gun, which is like the worst thing to use for doing big damage on single targets like that. So my strategy here, which I kind of figured out through failure, because I'd failed this run a couple times before this, was to only attempt to take the barriers out when I've got either a fusion grenade and celestial fire ready, or 2 fusion grenades, or all 3. Because when I can get them to put their shield up, so the trick is keep rotating around the map, pick one of the barriers, start weakening them until you know that like 20% of his HP is off. Then you know, like, if you just take off a little bit more, the barrier is gonna stop and it's gonna put up its shield. So you want to kind of get it a little bit weak first, and then get ready to force him to put his shield up when you got a good opportunity. And then as soon as he puts his shield up, make sure that you can stun him, take his shield down, stun him, and then do as much damage as you can. It's not going to be with my machine gun. It's going to be by either double fusion grenades or a single fusion grenade and celestial fire, because that's going to set off an ignition. So I mean, the fusion grenade does good damage itself. It's better than the machine gun. But the fusion grenade and a celestial fire is going to set off a massive ignition. So that's how you can take them out in one cycle. And there's two barriers. It's always 2 barriers at a time, and for this second third of Alak-Hul's health bar, there's going to be 2 phases of barriers total. So there'll be 4 barriers before you're able to take off the rest of his health, and then he goes immune, and then you're going to have 2 arc shielded knights, 2 light bearers again. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what point I'm at here. I think I've taken out 1 barrier, and there's 1 barrier left. And I can see that I've taken off half of this health bar on Alak-Hul, which means that the second... So this might be the second wave of barriers. That's like, I'm not even really watching as I'm commentating on this. Okay, so that barrier is down. Alright, so... And another thing I do too is, before I even take out the barriers, I try and just run around the map and take care of all the ads. Just focus the ads that are on the upper platforms. I never even go down onto the lower sections. Because the lower section is littered with Cursed Thrall that'll blow up and kill you. And Alak-Hul can easily hit you with his arc blast down there, or he'll get you cornered and kill you like with his melee. So it's a bad spot to be on the lower sections. If you really want to play the lower sections, then you gotta try and take out all the Cursed Thrall from above first, and then go down when you think it's safe. A lot of people do want to do that just to go get all the orbs, because there's a ton of orbs of power that just drop down there. So you could use your super, then go down there, collect some orbs, get your super back fast. but I just play it safe and just stay on the upper platforms the whole time. Right, okay, so 4 barriers are down, so now I'm just taking the rest of his health bar off until he goes immune. And perfect timing, I got my super. So the Lightblade warrior, like on GM, if he direct hits you with his suppressor grenade, that'll kill you. Which sucks, because half the time you don't even know that he's thrown it until it's too late and you've heard that little bounce, and then it's like, oh, I'm dead. But if you're doing it at level on master, and you got tier 10 resilience, then you can just narrowly escape death. He'll get you critical. So the one thing to watch out for with the Lightblade warriors is when they don't have their super, that's when they're throwing suppressor grenades. When they do have their super, that's when they're throwing their sentinel shields. So if you get hit by 2 sentinel shields, you're dead. If you get hit by 1 suppressor grenade, you're almost dead. So either way you go, he's dangerous. So it's just best if you can to keep distance. Unless you use Well of Radiance, you can actually withstand pretty much anything that he throws at you. See, Phoenix Dive was just perfect for this boss room. Like, I'm serious. In the time that it takes you to drop a healing rift, that's enough time for Alak-Hul to close the distance on you and melee you with his axe, or get an angle and blast you with arc. And then you definitely, like, that's just in the amount of time it takes you to put the healing rift down. So forget about like standing in the rift to heal. And that's just suicidal. Obviously, like, you could just play this whole boss room without even dropping a rift anywhere, or you can drop it somewhere when you're safe, and then, you know, with the intention of kind of coming back to it, like moving around and kind of dipping in and out of your rift. But why not just take advantage of Phoenix Dive? That's what it's there for. It's a mobility based healing ability, so pretty good. But yeah, so here's the same thing. Once you take out the Knights and the Lightbearer, Alak-Hul's gonna drop his he's gonna come out of his little immunity phase, and then you're gonna have the barriers again. Now, I don't know if I could have swore that there was, just like the last phase, there's gonna be 2 phases of 2 barriers each at a time, so 4 barriers again. But it felt like there was only 2. So I really hesitated on finishing the boss off towards the end there, because I could have swore that I was missing a barrier or 2, and I think I killed one of the barriers without realizing it as well. Another thing, when you're rotating around the map, like, I'm constantly jumping up and down. Well, you're safer the higher up you are. Like, if you're kind of up in the arches, he has no way to really hit you or splash damage you with his arc blast. Whereas if you're on the lower platforms, it's a lot easier to get hit by his arc blast. And then if you're too close to any of the walls, same thing. Then it's super easy to get splash damage killed. Okay, so I cracked his shield, and then see, I did kill him. Okay, that's the part I wasn't sure about. When I was playing this, I didn't realize that I killed that barrier because I missed my jump there. So I cracked his shield. I knew that I had a celestial fire and a fusion grenade ready. As soon as I cracked the shield, I did my celestial fire. And then I jumped over and threw a fusion grenade, but I kind of fell short of the platform, so I wasn't sure if my fusion grenade landed. And I couldn't see if it killed him or not. And I wasn't paying attention to my kill feed because I was just trying to survive. Especially when you're on the lower platforms there, like all the cursed thrall. Yeah, so I was just trying to get out of that bottom section as soon as possible. So I lost track of how many barriers I'd killed. So like right now I know that there's this barrier, and then I'm assuming the other one's still up somewhere. So see, I know that I didn't have the opportunity to kill that barrier right then and there, so I didn't damage him anymore because I know as soon as I damage him a bit more, he's gonna put his shield up. I wanted to kind of keep him primed, have just enough of his health off, so that I can control when I want him to put his shield up. So like right there, I kind of duked out the boss, looped around and came back to that barrier, threw a grenade because I knew that was going to damage him enough for him to put his shield up. And as soon as he did, then I cracked him and I had another ability ready to go to finish him off. Okay, so now I'm waiting for the second wave of barriers. I could have swore there was going to be a second wave. Unless I had already killed a different wave and didn't even realize it, but I just felt like there was still another 2 barriers to come. Otherwise, if I'd known, I just would have started to do massive damage. Right now I'm just kind of doing a little bit at a time, waiting for that second spawn. So right now I'm just kind of paying attention to the audio, making sure that I can hear if those spawn rift kind of audio cues go off. Yeah, so I think at this point I'm like, okay, I guess there's not another wave of barriers coming. I'll just finish them off. But either way, I was happy to get it done. And then I stuck around at the end just to make sure that I would get platinum, and I did. But mind you, on this Nightfall, you can actually skip 2 barriers, or skip 2 champions in general. But I just killed them all, apparently. So anyways, that's it. So hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, comment. Happy to engage with people in the comment section. Catch you in the next one. Take care.